Welcome back to Celebrity. It's Olivia here. He didn't step down.
He was erased. The man once known as His Royal Highness. Now just Harry, not in theory, not in tabloids, but officially by order of the House of Lords. They didn't make an announcement, no press conference, no warning, just quiet meetings behind palace walls. And when the gavel dropped, it wasn't a punishment, it was a statement. If you leave the crown, they said, you leave everything. And now, the man who once symbolized the future of the monarchy, the soldier, the brother, the people's prince, is watching that entire legacy vanish. This isn't just a title. This is a throne closing its gates forever. And the loudest reaction was silence.
Now, when Meghan Markle and Prince Harry decided to leave the royal family, they agreed with Queen Elizabeth that they would not use their official title, His Royal Highness or Her Royal Highness, in any commercial capacity. And despite that, Meghan has now readopted Meghan, Duchess of Sussex. But not only that, she's also started to use Her Royal Highness, Duchess of Sussex.
Now, the king can end this feud, but not by shaking hands with this treacherous little weasel, but by stripping him and his wife of the royal titles that they love to use for commercial gain without doing any of the work.
But of course, the real measure of success for both of them will be the same as it always has been. How much damage can they inflict on our royal family, on our monarchy? I said it before, I'll say it again tonight. King Charles should strip them of all their remaining titles and cast them out from any connection to the royal family. How could any of them trust them as far as I could throw them? Because without it, they're just whining millennial windbags with a permanent victim complex, knowing that victimhood is what makes them all the money.
Being that Meghan and Harry are not official members of the royal family anymore because they stepped down, they're not allowed to use their HRH title.
Meghan has said through a representative today that she is not using the HRH title. We have literal, tangible proof.
Now, Meghan, just last week, she did her first long-form sit-down podcast interview. She showed a basket that she had sent to the host of the podcast as a thank you for allowing her to come on. And here you can kind of zoom in here and it says, with the compliments of Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex.
Yeah, she's gaslighting, she's lying, absolutely. And this is just another one of those examples of Harry and Meghan disrespecting the Queen. I know she is no longer here, but that does not mean that the rules don't apply to you any longer.
A new poll by Find Out Now has revealed that most of the public is supporting the King in this family feud, ongoing family feud, after Harry's bombshell BBC interview. It follows the Court of Appeal's decision to not overturn the ruling on his security in the UK.
Now that the once carefree, fun-loving prince has turned into a miserable moaner, lashing out from the depths of his paranoia at a world he thinks is conspiring against him.
Oh, shut up. What do you mean the stakes are this high? Who do you think you are? Other than a latte-munching imbecile living in luxury in California while the rest of the world's a cost of living crisis, moaning and whining about an institution which gave you the titles on which you now trade millions of dollars. What are you talking about? What stakes?
It didn't happen overnight.
The meetings weren't loud, they weren't angry, they were strategic. Somewhere behind those towering gates, in rooms lined with portraits of kings and queens long gone, the royal family made its decision, not because of emotion, but because of precedent. Because if Prince Harry, a man who left the firm, signed with Netflix, dropped a memoir, and cashed in on a royal tell-all, was allowed to keep his titles, what message would that send? That you can walk away from the crown and still wear its gold? The monarchy doesn't bleed like that. So they drew the line. Step out and stay out. No dip-ins, no half-in, half-out fantasy. And when the order came down, there was no spectacle, just silence and a title gone. For Harry, it wasn't just a loss of status. It was the undoing of his identity. Because for all the rebellion, for all the interviews, for all the California Light and podcast deals, his name, his relevance, still lived in the shadow of the crown. Now, that shadow is gone. And what's left? Just a man, with a past he's burned, and a future that's starting to feel uninvited. The royal family didn't slam the door. They closed it slowly, so he'd hear the echo.
At first, it was just Parliament. Then came the headlines. Then, like lightning down the spine of the country, the people followed. And suddenly, Prince Harry wasn't being discussed like royalty. He was being treated like a cautionary tale. Across the UK, the mood shifted, fast. Piers Morgan called it long overdue. The BBC barely flinched. The Daily Mail labeled him irrelevant in every way that counts. Even former supporters, the "he's just misunderstood" crowd, started backing off. C#, copy, edit. We defended you when you left. We defended you when you spoke your truth. But now you've sold the truth to Spotify. Now you've repackaged royal trauma for Netflix trailers. Now, even your title is too much. And on social media, it was brutal. Arduino, copy, edit. He wanted freedom, one tweet read, and now he has it, alone. The tension didn't just rise, it snapped. Harry thought he was escaping the crown's weight, but he forgot what the crown really is. It's not jewels, it's not titles, it's the trust of a nation. And that, he lost it. So when the House of Lords quietly stripped his name, the royal family didn't need to say a word. Britain already had. It started with a scroll. Breaking. Prince Harry's royal title officially removed from House of Lords listing. No ceremony, no speech. Just gone. And then, the internet took over. BBC clipped it into a 20-second update. Dry, direct, royal silence on loop. The Daily Mail posted a headline that felt like a stab. Just Harry now? But TikTok? Oh, TikTok made it go viral. Side-by-side edits. Harry walking in uniform in 2017. Cut to Harry in a hoodie, reading Spare into a podcast mic. Soundtrack to Started from the Palace, Now We're Here. One tweet, 18 million views in 24 hours. He left the monarchy, then he left the UK. Now the UK just left him. Fan pages, silent. Comment sections, ruthless. We backed him when he left, but now it's just self-pity wrapped in Spotify contracts. Even Oprah interviews were getting re-edited, now seen not as brave, but calculated. Old clips resurfaced of Harry saying, "Titles don't define me." Now, that line's a meme. Influencers who once called Meghan and Harry refreshing now call them performers. There's a difference between speaking your truth and monetizing your pain. And the final nail? A leaked message from a royal aide. The House of Windsor doesn't chase you down. It simply outlasts you. He said he wanted peace. He said he wanted to protect his family. He said walking away from the royal family was the only path to freedom. But now, he's not just free. He's unclaimed, because titles can be revoked. Privileges can be stripped. But the trust he burned, that doesn't come back. The irony? Harry once stood on the balcony of Buckingham Palace next to his brother, waving to a sea of thousands. Now, he's waving from podcast studios, hoping someone still remembers the boy behind the soldier. He traded tradition for reinvention, and somehow lost both. The man who once marched behind Diana's coffin, a nation grieving at his side, now walks a very different road, one where the cameras still follow. But the respect? It stopped walking with him, and maybe that's the cost. Because the crown doesn't chase, it doesn't beg, it simply waits. And when it decides you don't belong, it doesn't scream, it erases. So now it's done. No more His Royal Highness. No more footnotes in the House of Lords. No more balcony appearances. Prince Harry is officially just Harry. But here's the question nobody wants to ask. What if this was never about titles, but about trust? What if the moment he walked away, not from duty but from accountability, he made a choice the monarchy couldn't unsee? What if this was less about betrayal and more about branding? A man born into legacy, who traded it for a microphone, a story of royal pain, repackaged for profit. And maybe the public could have lived with that, if only he'd stopped calling himself a prince, if only he hadn't worn the uniform, while burning the system that gave it to him. So now we're left with this, a man without a country, a crown without a name, and a silence that feels louder than any scandal. So what do you believe? Was this the price of speaking out? Or the cost of forgetting who you were? The second you sold who you are? Drop your truth in the comments. Because history won't write this chapter, we will. And Harry, he'll be reading. The story's still being told, but the title, it's already gone.